On today's show, Ja Morant makes his triumphant return with a vengeance. What did we see from him? And can the Grizzlies crawl back into the playoff picture? Then Steph Curry proves he's still that guy. What do we see in their overtime win against the Celtics? Talk about that and more on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show. Make it Locked On NBA your first listen today, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day and to comment anything below. Leave a 5-star review, like the video. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And joining me, as always, on a Wednesday, what you got for me, Pat the Designer?
As always on a Wednesday, I feel like it's a little early for us this week, ain't it? I don't know. It's a little early this week.
Looked at the schedule and was like,
hey. That throw you off a little bit.
Hey, so switching with Jake Madison, he'll be going tomorrow. So if you come here for Jake and John, sorry, you can wait one extra day. But if you're here for us, we're here to talk about the Warriors versus the Celtics, an incredible game that came down to the wire where Draymond Green didn't play, but the Warriors had other guys step up in his stead. And so we'll talk about Steph Curry and how insane he was in that game. We'll also talk about Draymond Green. Shaq had some choice words for Draymond Green about his actions and about how the NBA has taken action on his actions. And maybe we'll get into it and count it up a little bit later where we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the Pistons. An insane amount of losses for the Pistons. God. And so we'll talk about that and count it up, where we do the most interesting, fun things in the NBA this week. But I want to start here. Ja Morant makes his return to the court. The Grizzlies get the win against the Pelicans, a comeback win, because the Pelicans at one point built up a 24-point lead right before halftime. And then the Grizzlies fought all the way back. Ja Morant made it a game late. They took their first lead of the second half with like a minute 22 to go. They led 111 to 109. They went on a 9-1 run to get there. And then Ja Morant hits a game winner on Herb's head. Not on Herb is what the Pelicans fans like to say about Herb Jones. And I have some bad news for you.
It was on Herb.
It was on Herb. It was on Herb. 100%. CJ McCollum airballs 2 threes in the last 2 minutes of the game, and Ja Morant again hits the game winner. And this one was for the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies get their first win with Ja Morant back in his first game. He scores 34 points, 8 assists, misses all 5 of his threes, but gets to the free throw line a bunch. What did you see from Ja Morant in his return?
I mean, listen, the first half, me and you were literally texting back and forth. I said, oh, boy, we're in for an ugly return of Ja Morant, because, he basically wasn't out there. He didn't look good defensively. Offensively, right, he just didn't have a shot. He didn't have his legs under him. It's almost like he hasn't played basketball in 25 games.
There was a moment in the third quarter where he was literally winded, and I was like, this is not what we're used to, this 140-pound athlete that's just the top 0.1% of all athletes in the world.
I believe he started off the third quarter 1 for 4 basically, and finishes out 4 for 8. Absolutely dominating. 13 points in that third. Really got himself going. I thought, he started to look more like Ja Morant. He started to look more comfortable. The thing for me was, right, getting to the free throw line, attacking downhill. It almost, I'm not going to lie, felt a little less reckless. Maybe he's been talking with D Rose a little bit. It didn't feel like he was just like trying to throw his body into the next biggest guy that was out there and hit the floor and just be like, all right, maybe like don't kill yourself.
Or but maybe the off the court, the recklessness off the court. Maybe there was some talks, and maybe there's some counseling, maybe there's something. We'll talk about that with Draymond a little bit later, but maybe some of that has translated now to on the court, and he's got some decisions to make.
Maybe he's thinking a little bit more safely, but it translated completely into that fourth quarter, where not only did you see him come out there and be able to really set things up for himself, still getting to the free throw line again, but also opening things up, something we haven't seen all season, making life easier for Jaren Jackson Jr., who also was able to chip in that fourth quarter. I thought that Ja Morant's return was pretty much everything you could hope for. I will say maybe temper expectations early on, Memphis fans, because usually we see these games, the adrenaline, the hype, boom, let's go. I'm excited to be back. And then, right, like you come back to earth a little bit because you haven't played basketball in 25 games.
He did the opposite. He was back to earth in the first half.
Yeah.
And then in the second half, he scores 27 points, 5 assists, goes to the free throw line 10 times. It felt like if you've ever done a workout, which I do not do many, but there's a point in the workout where it feels like you get over the hump, and then you're like, okay, it's easier now than what it was when I first started, right? Like
he got a second wind. He got a second wind.
It felt like he got that second wind literally in the second half, and he just got better as the game went on, and then ended in the best way you could. Now, about the Grizzlies themselves, listen, my guys, Joe Molinax and DeMichael Cole, at one point this season, were talking about Santi Aldama playing point guard and being like a point forward for them and handling the ball and creating play. They were so desperate for somebody to create some plays, to create some easy baskets for other people. And they're having that conversation, and I just felt so bad for them because everybody's team has been in that situation where you're just looking for somebody to do something that maybe they do a little bit, and then casting them in a completely different role because of the injuries that you have on that team. All right, this guy's got to do that. This guy's got to do Dante Exum for the Mavs right now. Is like, can Dante Exum be the second leading scorer all the time for the Mavs? Every once in a while you can say yes, but not all the time.
Yeah.
In this one, you finally got that playmaking where Ja Morant can like take one dribble and then whip a pass across the court to Santi Aldama in the corner, or to just dump off a pass. Like he had a behind the back to, I think it was
Desmond Bain,
Xavier Tillman, the one where he was under the basket and he just spins the ball like behind him, and you're like, this is what the Grizzlies have been missing for so long. This is why the Grizzlies were a top 11 offense last year and a top 10 offense the year before that. They've just been waiting for this to return, and honestly, like, stars win games, man. Like, you just need a guy like that every once in a while to do something nuts.
And I think what you realized was, right, like how important, and listen, as a Bulls fan, I've realized this a ton, but how important the point guard position is, and having somebody there that just can, like you said, create for everybody else. I thought that.
Are we about to compare Ja Morant and Kobe White right now?
No, not at all.
Is this where we're going with this?
No, not at all, because I think very different players, very different styles of play. But I guess if there is one comparison, right, the attention that they drew. The attention that Kobe White draws that is making the rest of the team better. The attention Ja Morant draws now makes Desmond Bain so much of a better player on the offensive end. And it's not to say that he's been playing bad, but when he's the number one focal point on the team, it makes it a lot harder to lock guys down. Listen, Jaren Jackson's fouling out. We know how most of his games are gonna go, right? So
he finished with 4. He didn't.
He barely made it, right? Barely, but he's at his average. Yeah, I mean, but no, I think that when you look at Desmond Bain's game and how much easier it was for him in the second half of this game, and how much easier it was for Jaren Jackson Jr. in the second half of this game, it just felt more like, okay, this is a Grizzlies team that I can kind of see climbing out of this, versus, what we've seen most of the season, where it's like, even when Desmond Bain goes for, what did he go for the other day? Like 35, and they still lost?
That's like the entire start to their season has been that. He did that against the Mavs, I think, twice. He went off for like 30 something and still lost. You talk about Desmond Bain in the game he had. Ja Morant, according to DeMichael Cole from Locked On Grizzlies, Ja Morant came up to Desmond Bain in the huddle and asked if he wanted to run a post play for Jaren on the last play of the game. Bain said, quote, "I was like, no." Bain said he wanted the ball in Ja's hands. DeMichael clarifies that. In Ja's words, he told me, no. Don't give the ball to Jaren. Don't give the ball to me. This is Desmond Bain talking. Put the ball in your hands. You're the guy. Like, they've been waiting for this guy to come back, and I think Bain has gained some confidence. Jaren Jackson Jr. has gained confidence. He's been getting the free throw line a ton. He's just been attacking in ways we haven't really seen before this season. And so, putting it all together, my question is now, can they make a comeback? They're 7-19, 7 games back from the play, and 9 games back from top 6 in the West. Marcus Smart returns later this week, according to DeMichael Cole. Yeah. Can the Grizzlies get back up?
100%. Why wouldn't they be able to? Like, we're so early in the season. Half the teams that are in the playoffs right now might not be in the playoffs by the time that we get to the playoffs here.
Don't say
like,
that.
Listen,
that was my existence all of last year.
I'm just saying, like, that's not. We're so early in the season, right? Like, and storylines have changed a million times.
Yeah.
Except
remember
for
when the Spurs were scrappy? Remember when they were like the scrappy upstart? Like
I was literally talking about this with Hayes on Locked On Bulls today, and I was like, remember when we thought Wemby was going to be a legit storyline every game?
He is only when the Spurs play. The only teams that have made the playoffs after starting 6-19, which is what they were before tonight. 1984-85, the Cleveland Cavaliers were 5-20, which is crazy. And 1952-53, I had to look this up. The abbreviation is BLB. Who is the BLB team from the 50s?
Is that a original Big Baller brand? Is that BLB? What?
BLB sounds like a procedure you get.
Like, hey, what did he go down to Puerto Rico for?
Hey,
I got that new BLB. That's the male version of the BBL. Y'all don't want to know what it does, but I'm gonna tell you this right now. It's bigger.
The Baltimore Bullets, by the way, is BLB on Basketball Reference. They were 5-20. There have been 7 teams in NBA history that have started 7-19, which is what the Grizzlies are now, and have made the playoffs. The last one to do it was the 2021-22 Pelicans. They did it. They started 7-19 and made the playoffs. And then before that, it was the 70-71 Atlanta Hawks. So it's a long shot, but it can be done. And with Ja Morant back, it looks like this Grizzlies team is headed in that direction. They added the piece. Who adding an all-star seems to help. So
I mean, I think that I would bet you almost every one of those teams, it's probably a similar situation. Maybe not the same situation Ja went through, but yeah, I mean.
Well, the Baltimore Bullets in 1952, it's because there's only like 6 teams that made the
I mean,
like 8 teams in the whole league back then.
What the Bullets do? They signed a black guy. Oh wow! Oh, it worked. It worked out. That's crazy. That is insane. How'd they do that? It was 1952, bro. That's pretty much how every team changed the trajectory of their team back then.
They were like, listen, we got to get a second bus, but we signed this.
That's crazy, bro.
Jesus.
Yeah,
coming up.
The white versus black Pro Bowl back then would have been interesting. Nick's not going to make it.
Coming up. I'm glad that there's a fourth of us on this show right now. Coming up, let's talk about Steph Curry and what he did to get the Warriors that win against the Celtics. So the Celtics only their 6th loss of the season. We'll talk about that and more coming up.
But first, our partners at eBay Motors, I just threw everybody off. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long.
Spit take just then.
Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire every week, we are going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us this week. For this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Pick of the Week. Ladies and gentlemen, drum roll please, Tari Eason. Still coming hot off the bench, but it doesn't really matter as Ime Udoka has found minutes for him. He's a strong fantasy value per minute option who became useful to everyone as these minutes tick up tonight. Monday night came out 14 points, 4 steals, 1 block, 2 assists, 8 rebounds. As somebody who was playing in fantasy, I literally, the second I heard that Josh was in on Tari Eason, I ran to try and pick up Tari Eason. He was already gone. So that tells you what kind of value he's able to give you there. And I think that here's the thing, with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride or die stays running smoothly, just like Tari Eason is making sure the Houston Rockets keep running smoothly. That's a That's an interesting one there. Yeah, Tari helping them out. Brake lights, Tari, tire. No, never mind. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And eBay Motors guaranteed fit. It's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay guaranteed fit, available to U.S. customers, eligible items only. Exclusions do apply.
Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA, being part of the show, being an everydayer, listening every day. We have a daily Locked On show that covers your team. Check the link in the description to find the show that covers your team every day. All right, Pat, let's talk about the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors score 99 points before the third quarter and then end the game with 132 points. An insane outing for them in the last two frames, 1.5 frames,
I don't know. What would you count a overtime frame? 5 minutes? Is that a full frame? Is that a full frame?
No, it's
half a frame.
It's literally 4/5 of a frame.
No, that was horrible measure. Okay,
terrible math, awful math for me.
That's why we cover NBA.
This is why you did the ad for me, because my brain is I have full sick brain right now. I did a full disclaimer in the front of Locked On Mavs today that was like, I think this episode is going to make sense. But if I don't make any sense during this episode, because I was doing it solo, I was like, it's because I'm sick. If any bad takes, it's because I've been very sick today. All right. Steph Curry.
If it sounds terrible, it's not me. It's you.
The sick brain talking. Have you watched that episode of Parks and Rec where Rob Lowe just looks in the mirror and he's like, stop pooping? That's the way my brain feels today. All right. Steph Curry, 33 points, 6 assists. He picked up his 4th and 5th foul within 2 minutes of each other in the third quarter with 6 minutes left in there. He had 5 fouls. Kerr put him back in a little early, trusted his guy. And Curry had an insane sequence in the fourth quarter where the Celtics lead was falling off. Curry takes a real gutsy charge with like about 4 and some change left. Takes the charge, then immediately on the other end, he takes a deep 3, and they're down by 1 at that point. And then Boston just kept missing shots over and over again. Couldn't find the right shot to go. They shot 41%, 29% from the field. They took 58 threes. There were 108 threes taken in this game. Actually, I'm going to go look it up. How long did it take them to get 108 threes in 1979 when they first did it?
It's the same thing. They just added a black guy to the team. Oh, God.
Thoughts on Steph Curry and how he just completely took that game over at the end?
No, I mean, listen, Steph being Steph, they asked him after the game, what does it feel like, again, being in these moments? And he just laughed because he loves being in these moments. And the thing for me is, right, Stephen Curry, the third quarter really had no impact on the game at all. He basically was 1 for 3, didn't play a ton because of the foul trouble. The fourth quarter, he's a guy, and you always have to watch out for it. They kept going to the matchup that they found. They kind of went away from it a little bit late, but they found this matchup where it was Steph Curry getting switched off of the screen onto Al Horford. And I mean, there was nothing that Boston could do defensively because you're right. You start to bring the double team with Derek White. It doesn't matter because on top of all of that, Wardell's cooking. Klay Thompson also getting it going there. Finally. And being able to knock down the 3 ball, having those options on the floor. I thought that Steph did a good job, not only just offensively, but finding guys open. And when you need somebody to knock down a big shot, you already know what Steph is going to bring. That fourth quarter, he was 5 for 7, 13 points, also had 4 assists in that quarter. Yeah. And Klay Thompson coming through with 2 big 3-pointers, gives you the 3-pointer, I believe, to tie it up 121, which is our final score before we go to overtime, right? Like seeing how Stephen Curry came out and really orchestrated his team to a victory. It felt, I'll say this, there was a point where I was like, why'd they add Chris Paul to this team? Because it just felt like, oh, okay, like guys are just doing stuff out there following Steph's lead.
The 12 assists is why they added Chris Paul. You don't have Draymond to be that hub anymore. And so they finished the game with Chris Paul. I was thinking the same thing because Chris Paul couldn't hit the broadside of the barn shooting today.
He was letting it fly, my boy.
Finished 4 of 12, but in the end, he was just like, he was throwing up shots. And I was like, what is he doing? What are we doing? And he finished with 12 assists, though. That's why they brought him in, is to 12 assists, 0 turnovers. This team desperately needed somebody like that because this Warriors team is known for turning the ball over and having some crazy turnovers. They only finished the game with 10. That's huge for them to only finish with 10. And like that's why they had Chris Paul out there.
And an unknown name too that they played a young guy today, Trace Jackson Davis.
Talk about him.
You cannot sit here and the numbers aren't going to tell you what he really did impact wise, but I thought the combination of him and Kuminga may have been one of the best 4 or 5 combinations we've seen the Golden State Warriors put on the floor this season, because there was just length everywhere. Guys were switching. The last bucket, who's guarding Jayson Tatum to make sure that we get the overtime? Crazy. Jonathan Kuminga's doing an elite job defending Jayson Tatum. The defense that those two provided, and Jackson Davis coming out in his rookie season and just looking like he's so ready for the moment. His rebounding ability, finishing with 13 rebounds, creating second chance opportunities, just so many different things that he did, playing the passing lanes. One of the big steals that happens in the fourth quarter of this game, he is the catalyst of. That young man is something to keep an eye on. And I actually like Jonathan Kuminga's been a guy who's popped in and out of this lineup. I hope that they continue to ride with those two kind of at the helm there while Draymond's out, because the youth and the exuberance that they showed in this game, I thought really propelled defensively the Golden State Warriors further than we've seen them go.
Our friend Dave Dufour over at The Athletic tweeted after the game, "It's time to have a talk with Kevon Looney." And I was like, "Oh, talking about Trace Jackson Davis and how maybe he should be the starter." You talk about his impact. You don't want to always look at single game plus minus as a way to show impact, but
plus 25.
He was plus 25. Nobody else was even plus double digits.
Yeah,
and
crazy.
Looney was minus 19. Like Trace Jackson Davis's impact was felt in this one. 4 offensive rebounds, 13 boards total, 3 block shots in this one, including some late in the game. They closed with him. He played 28 minutes in this one. It just came out, and there's always one player on every team that a fan base just goes, that guy's got to play more, right? Who's the guy on the Bulls right now? You're just like, they've got to play.
Julian Phillips, young guy came in.
You're like, they just got to play more. For some reason, ridiculously on the Mavs right now, it's Rashawn Holmes. But for the fans aren't always right. the Warriors.
Rashawn Holmes was not the name I thought you were going to throw out there, my guy.
Well, the other center is Dwight Powell when Lively is not in there. So. But for the Warriors, it's been Trace Jackson Davis. I've heard it on Locked On Warriors, them talk about him and getting some more time and some more run. And he got the national TV exposure with this, and just an incredible run. And just Steph Curry still proving that he's that guy. And that if people were wondering can the Warriors survive without Draymond? First of all, they couldn't really survive with Draymond right now. They've got other problems. They got much bigger problems, but Steph can still be Steph. And if these guys start shooting the ball, even their averages with Klay Thompson and Chris Paul and Andrew Wiggins, even like if they can start shooting decently well, they'll start to win some games. But they're out of the play-in picture right now, which is kind of wild. So.
Yeah, I mean, Wiggs is falling off a cliff. Like the funny thing about this is that me and Nick were laughing about. One, we haven't had a day where there's only 4 games like ever on Wednesday.
No, Wednesday. We usually host on Wednesday.
We're
nights,
usually like
there's 13 games on the slate.
We're sitting there. We're like, which is the best or which is the worst? But like, we're talking about a team that's 13-14 right now. Like, there's a long way for this Warriors team to go. But today felt like you kind of found some combinations that can help you get there.
Yeah, they may have won some titles and make us want to talk about them in some way. I mean, they're still relevant.
I get it, bro. But like 13-14 right now, like normally on a 13 game day, we're talking about John. We're talking about something probably Dallas Mavericks related.
Coming up, let's talk about a former All-Star that may just be a normal role player for this Warriors team, this 13-14 team right now. Draymond Green. Does Draymond Green need counseling? That's not exactly what we're going to talk about, but Shaq wants to ask the question, so we'll talk about it in Count It Up, where we count it up. Coming up.
But first, Listen, have you guys ever been out trying to buy tickets? And I think this is the most annoying thing. If you've seen some of the college game tickets, right? You might be sitting behind a pillar. You might be sitting behind a
the balcony.
Misplaced
have you
balcony.
seen?
Yeah, that's
have
what
you
I was
seen the
trying to
videos
say.
of the sphere in Las Vegas where people can sit under the balcony? Woo!
Yes. Like there's so many different spots where you just like, either my view's obstructed. What's the view going to be from the seat? You shouldn't have to worry about that when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seats, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying your ticket. I think that, listen, when you're talking about the view from your seat, that is the most elite thing that you can get, but also the all-in prices that show you your total up front, so you know that you're getting a great deal without hidden fees, and you can buy tickets in seconds. With 2 taps, you're 100% comfortable with the price right away. I mean, listen, Game Times has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last minute seats, find exclusive flash deals, sponsored deals on tickets for football. Listen, if you're here right now listening to this and you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you should be on Game Time right now.
$20 off. You can go to like 5 Panthers games.
Bro, no, $20 off. I'll tell you about that, because right now you can download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. You can buy 35 seats at a Panthers game right now, because they're selling tickets for 45 cents. And you're going to see that price up front, baby. You can buy as many seats as you need. And if you wait till an hour after the event starts, guess what? You're probably basically playing for the team. That is, download the Game Time app. Again, create an account. Use code Locked On NBA. That's LOCKDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
On tomorrow's Locked On NBA, Jake Madison. And we finally allowed Koo from Locked On Pistons to talk about something other than the Pistons.
Well, we'll see. Koo's on Locked On NBA. We kind of got to have a conversation about the Pistons, right?
They don't play, though. They don't play on Wednesdays. So
doesn't matter.
Great stuff. Mavs, Clippers tomorrow. Kings, Celtics, another good game. A lot of good games on. So check back in on tomorrow's Locked On NBA with Jake and Koo. All right, Pat, it's that time of the week where we count up the most interesting, fun things in the NBA in
Big Chicken, baby. Zion Williamson and porn star.
Take that for that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
Shaquille O'Neal on Inside the NBA today said about Draymond Green, the man don't need counseling. Off the court, he's a solid human being, a great man. Everyone needs a character on the court. He does a lot of crazy things on the court. There's nothing wrong with Draymond. My question is,
Count it up.
has the NBA taken it too far with Draymond Green and requiring him to take counseling?
I think the NBA has their standard on things. I think NBA media has taken this to another level. And I love the fact that Shaq says, this guy's not a bad dude. He's not a bad guy off of the court. Listen, on the court, and I think this is the biggest difference that we're seeing with Draymond Green right now. Shaq even said this in a quote. He's always been this guy. How many years have we been talking about Draymond Green maybe being a little excessive with how he plays, right? Being a little more violent with the lower regions, the nether regions of one Steven Adams, right? Like, how many times have we talked?
This is my thing with this. A spare dick kick is not like the same as stomping on somebody's chest. Punching, maybe open-handed, but punching Nurkic in the head, like getting Gobert in a headlock and pulling him, dragging him across the court. These are not the same things that we're talking about. Like, it's getting worse with Draymond. I understand he has a character and he wants to be physical and he wants to get in people's heads and all that, but like, he's hurting people. Like, he's hurting people at this point.
But I think
to me, he even the quote from him I go back to. If we're gonna like armchair psychologist here with Draymond, if like that's what we're gonna do here, because that's kind of what Shaq was trying to do.
Yeah.
If we're doing that, the clip where Draymond Green like after the game, looks at the video of him dragging Rudy Gobert across and he goes, man, I didn't even realize I did it for that long.
Yeah.
When he was watching the video back. That means to me, he's getting flooded emotionally during these moments. His character is going too far to where he just like doesn't realize what he's doing in the moment and how far he's taking some of this stuff. And to me, he needs to talk to somebody. Maybe not for like every day, like, or maybe he doesn't have to do like EDMR, or, you know, like the really intense counseling, but he needs to do something.
I think that here's the thing, right? We're starting to see the decline of a player who at one point we could overlook a lot of the stuff that he did because he was really talented, right? A lot of the stuff we look back on, he was hurting players back then, but he was Draymond Green. He was a lead facilitator. He was an elite defender in the NBA. When you're a really good player, a lot of times the media will overlook those things. I think now the off the court stuff where they're kind of like painting him as his whole personality is this. I get what Shaq is saying. On the court, do we want to maybe take some action on the stuff he did? 100%. What he did was wrong. Don't choke guys out. Maybe don't punch guys in the head. I agree with all of that. But to me, right, the whole he needed counseling, he needs therapy, he needs to figure out in his soul. No, he's a player whose talent is declining, and guess what? He's one of the few players that still plays like an era before. We see players do this all the time where we'd be like, hey man, he's not really good at basketball anymore. He's just kind of good at like hitting.
If Dylan Brooks started to do these things, Dylan Brooks has had a history of like doing weird stuff, and you know, if Dylan Brooks did the things that Draymond Green has done over the last like 6 months, we'd be having the same conversation. Like, all right, it's adding up. We can't do that just because it's his the stuff with Draymond has gotten worse. Like, you just can't deny that.
I mean, I think that it's always been bad though. Like, it's not good to kick people either. He just was a better defender. He was a championship level player.
Well, I mean, he's been suspended now twice in the beginning of the first 25 games. I mean, I think that's worse because it's more frequent. I mean, he wasn't. There were not penis kicks every. I was trying to think of an alliteration.
I got weird. I'm not gonna lie to you. I got a little weird. We got to we do this on lockdown.
They were not
lockdown.
They were not. They were not
weird.
Penis foot pushes every.
What?
Don't remember. I'm sick.
What? Oh, that's sick brain. That's what you go to when you're sick. Do the next one. We're off Draymond. We're off Draymond for sure now. My God.
The Detroit basketball Pistons.
I don't like the emphasis on D on that. That made me uncomfortable too.
Detroit basketball. 24 games lost in a row. This is now like the 5th week in a row you and I have talked about the Pistons because I find them fascinating. Wingstop has a promotion for them in Detroit. When the Pistons win, enjoy 5 free boneless wings with any online wing purchase. My question for you is, they're on pace for 6 wins this season.
Count it up.
How many free wings will a Michigander get this season? You get 5 free boneless wings when they win a game. So if they're on pace for 6, what do you get? 20?
I'll say I'm gonna say you get gotta go 15. I really don't
15 free wins like for the rest of the season.
Wins. Yeah, I really don't know.
3 more wins?
I really don't know where
There's
wins
no
are gonna start coming, dude. Like I don't, because I think here's the thing. They're so bought into the team that they are. They've been in competitive in games, and then it just completely falls off a cliff. Like I literally
have injuries to rely on anymore. Like,
you know what I mean? Like I've literally gone back and been like, okay, like what's happening here? Like, are they actually just
doing film on the Pistons right now?
Bro, I really went back to see like why they were struggling so bad, and it was like I think they were playing a game against, I want to say it was Phoenix, and it was a very competitive back and forth game, and then it just got to a point where it was like, oh, we're gonna start losing again. Here it comes. There it is. And then once they get down, they just give up. This is a mindset at this point, one that Monty Williams is going to have a really, really tough time breaking. And I don't see the Pistons getting many wins. I was dying laughing today because guess who their last win was against?
The Bulls.
Their second win. And I thought they had 3 wins. I think I had made it up in my brain that like,
they had beat
somebody else. I just had made it up in my brain. Last win, the Chicago Bulls. I could not stop laughing.
The Pistons started the season 2-1. People forget.
Koo had 3 games of excitement. And then they absolutely ripped his heart out. I literally told Bulls fans, and listen, every team's fan should do this. Just at Koo Cahill, just prayer hands and hashtag whatever your team's hashtag is. So he knows that the entire NBA is supporting the pain that he has to go through.
Insane. So let us know in the comment section, how many free wings will Michiganders get this season for the Detroit Pistons? You get 5 free ones with every win. Let us know in the comment section. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA.
Bye-bye.
Boom. 5 free wings.